Welcome to this special video edition of Studio CMO Live. Hi, I'm Mark Whitlock, and today we're going to be talking about writing, talking about all things putting words together. And, sometimes that's harder than it looks. And we're going to have some fun talking about how to write for the web, how to write for your audience, and most importantly, just how to put reasonable sentences together that communicate something. And we're excited to be here today. I've got two of my coworkers with me, and I've got one of my favorite writers on the planet here too. We'll start with her. Mia Major is the Director of Demand Generation for Finalsite. Finalsite is the preferred marketing and communications platform for more than 5,000 schools worldwide. I got a chance to meet Mia a couple years ago, and when she's not helping me be a better writer, she's helping me laugh. So Mia, thank you for being on board with us today.
Thank you so much. You are, I feel like, too kind. You are really building me up here. I feel like an accomplished author, like I'm J.K. Rowling, but I really just write blogs about marketing. So thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you've helped me a lot, like I said. So, well, there we go. Anna Grimes is joining us today from our Golden Spiral team. Anna is the marketing and communications manager for us and heads up a few accounts and just does all things. And the thing that we love most about Anna is that she can slip into the most delightful old Southern accent at any point and lighten any meeting. So, Anna, we're grateful you're on board today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank
And
you.
And Taylor Underwood is with us. Taylor is our senior content strategist. And I think for this year holds the record for the most times receiving the Bomb Award at Golden Spiral. Every week we give out a bomb to the person who has made a significant contribution on our team. And Taylor has just been knocking it out of the park so many times this year. Taylor, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
So the thing that all four of us have in common is that we have to string words together. And we've been doing this for a while. And so if you're watching, you're probably having to write something too. At a minimum, a tweet. At the maximum, an ebook or a white paper or something else. Or who knows, maybe you've got something burning in your heart to write something, actually a book, a real book. Do those still exist? Yes, they do. So thanks for joining us. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things today. So, hey, I wanted to start out today, guys. Taylor, we'll come to you first. I'll just put you on the spot. When did you start loving to write? And tell us about something back in the day of learning how to write and loving to write.
I think that it all started because I was a pretty big reader as a kid. Loved Boxcar Children, Babysitter's Club. Got those delivered to my house every month and would just kind of tear through them. And I think being a lover of reading made me curious about writing. And I know I wrote my own short story when I was probably 8 years old about being a baseball player and a ballerina.
Oh my
so
God.
that's where it all began for me.
That's a great story.
I majored in English in college, and it was always just the subject I was drawn to, and got real joy out of putting words together and making content readable and digestible, and being able to look at something you produce and think that it sounds really great.
Does your dad still have a copy of that story?
It must be somewhere. I hope so. Hopefully it's at my parents' house. I haven't seen it in decades.
Oh, wow. How about you, Anna? What got you to the place where you love writing?
I'll have to say that at least initially it was difficult. My first research paper I wrote in 9th grade, and what it taught me was how hard it can be, but it also taught me that to take pride in that finished product. And so the rewards of, wow, you invest all this time, and sometimes it can be excruciating to get all those words on the paper, but boy, when you do, and I was a history major in college, so I didn't come in by way of the English. My enthrallment with it was primarily from reading the subject matter, and then to kind of pick up on what Taylor said, to sort of help explain things to somebody about a historical topic. So my training as a historian really kind of helped, and it really has come in handy when you're writing. When you're writing marketing blogs, because you have to cite your research, you have to know how to go and find things. And so And then the fun part though with this is for the most part in writing anything with history, I can't talk to like the actual people.
Right.
But this, now you can interview somebody, and that's kind of cool too.
Great. Mia, how about you?
So I guess my beginnings are much different than Taylor and Anna's because I actually don't like to read that much and never have. I was that kid during SSR who would like pretend to read on the beanbag. Yeah, but I've always loved writing, and I think I can like pinpoint basically two main memories. So the first one, I was in elementary school, so I believe I was in first or second grade, and I had wrote this poem that I'm sure looking back is total like just not good. And I just specifically remember the teacher like calling me up to the front of the room, telling me how good it was. She wanted me to read it at the like school-wide Memorial Day assembly and invite my parents. So my dad took off work and like my mom came. And then my mom at the end of it was like, that really wasn't that great. And like looking back at that, I was like, Mom, I was like 7, like just like really giving it to me as it is. She's a great Simon Cowell in my life. I really appreciate her honesty through and through all these years. But I feel like that was really like when I think I became one of those kids that I was clearly the creative and not the mathematician. And I really thrived in like all of my writing classes, all of my English classes. I ended up taking AP English as a junior in high school, and just completely fell in love with storytelling more than just writing. I had this amazing teacher who, my God, he has to be in his 90s now. He retired, Mr. Trimmer. I sent him an email during COVID and was just like, hey, just checking, make sure you're alive because I'd love to see you when I move home next year. He's still alive. He is a volunteer writer at a charter school in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Wow.
But he was one of those people that I felt also just gave me brutal honesty and really just made me always want to be better than I was. And I feel like he really pushed me to open up in a way that I never had in my writing before. And I feel like his life lessons and his just unique take on storytelling and writing has just stuck with me over the past 20 plus years. And every time I write something, I'm always just like, would Mr. Trimmer be proud of this? And I think sometimes in the world of marketing blogs, I'm like, no, he would not be proud of this. Like, this is so written for Google. This is not written for anyone but Google. But I'd like to think that most of the work that I do still has that little bit of storytelling at heart that he would be proud of.
Very cool. I fell into it backwards too. I was a ham. I could get up in front of any classroom and BS my way to an A. But whether I did the core reading behind it or actually could write anything was a whole other story. But somehow or another along the way, I started writing songs, and I had this crazy dream to be a songwriter. I didn't want to be a performer, but I wanted to be a writer. And then when I got to college, I had, all these A's on my report cards from BSing my way to them. Came home to roost because I was in the honors program at the University of Georgia, and I had to write all the stinking time, essay after essay after paper for the first 2 years. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, I need to learn how to put this stuff together. I learned how to love to read during my freshman and sophomore years at college, and therefore I learned how to love to write, and started actually feeling traction when I would write radio scripts. I was a stringer reporter, student reporter for the NPR station. And my work was scrutinized because it was carried on the entire Georgia network. And so I had like 3 or 4 different editors, including people I've still never even met in Atlanta. I was in Athens at the University of Georgia, and they were in Atlanta, and it was crazy. And so I kind of fell into it that way. And then writing has kind of been that thing, that vein that's been common to everything I've done in my career. And so I've hopefully been getting better and better at it. So anyway, that's cool. Those are some cool stories. So we're going to post the great poem that Mia did and Taylor's story on being a ballerina and a baseball player at the same time on the show notes. No, I'm joking. We're not going to. So we're talking about the tools for writing, how to be a better writer, how to write better marketing copy that gets better results. And so let's talk about some stuff. We all have stuff on our desk or things on our desk or resources on our desk that are the go-to things. that we use, or maybe our desktop would be a better way to say that, on our computers. So Mia, what's something on your desk or your desktop that's a go-to resource for you that helps you get writing projects started?
So besides my Ernest Hemingway inspired method of writing, which involves chugging a bottle of tequila before writing, I would say my inspirational pens and my day planner. I feel like I'm the type of person, and I feel like my phone, I'm the type of person where like I'll be on a run or a walk with my dog and I'll have this great idea for a blog and I like need to write it down because and it never happens to me. I feel like when I'm sitting at my desk, I've written so many blogs on like the notepad on my phone, like literally dripping wet out of the shower. Like I just had this great idea. So I don't know what people did before then. Like I imagine they had to get out of the shower and like fully dry themselves off and write down their ideas. And before then, their idea was probably just gone at that point, because that's usually what happens to me. It's like if I don't do it in that moment, then it's not going to be remembered. But definitely, I love my little inspirational pens. Anything to brighten up my space, despite what you might see in this very bland background behind me.
Yeah, so I'm a book guy. I actually have physical books, and most of the time I never even crack them anymore, but they're there to inspire me. For instance, even though I've only read like 2 of his novels, I've got Stephen King's excellent book on writing that's there. And you know what? This book reminds me to stop using adverbs, stop using ly words, because he preaches a long, long sermon in a chapter on that, as well as just he also tells another story about an uncle who had a toolbox, this massive toolbox. It was incredibly heavy to carry. And when he would go to fix a window, like a window screen or something, he carried this entire big, massive toolbox. And the point that Stephen King makes in the book is that take all of your tools with you to whatever you're writing. No matter how small or big, make sure you have all of your tools there. So don't, and the way I would translate it is, don't write a Facebook post without at least thinking about it as a writer. Don't write anything, a thank you note. Always be a writer, because you're always having a chance to hone your craft. So always take your tools with you. And then I have a dictionary and a thesaurus, and my favorite thesaurus of all time is the synonym finder. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this or not. Now, again, I haven't opened this in a long time. We're going to be talking about one of our tools later on that I use every day, but I keep this to remind myself to use better words along the way. And a friend of mine who always made jokes out of me using big words that I probably should never use, bought me this for my birthday one year. It's the Highly Selective Dictionary for the Extraordinary Literate. And again, I can't even understand half of what's in here, but it's fun to have on my desk and to look at and to remind myself not to be hoity-toity. So anyway, those are the things that are literally in my line of sight when I'm writing to help me out. How about you, Taylor?
So as far as physical items, I don't have too much on my desk. I'm working on a pretty small desk in my home office, but I have my notebook, and I'm pretty formulaic, so I make the same to-do list every week, and then on the other side there's a blank page, and as whatever I'm crafting, I typically have to go to that blank page to jot down a few things to get my brain going once I start a project, or once I'm just playing around with different words, and so that's that's how I operate every week. And then, do we want to talk about stuff on like my browsers or anything? Just
sure,
yeah,
right, yeah, stuff that are go-tos. Go for it.
You may were going to talk about this as well, but Word Hippo is my synonym finder, so that's one of the bookmarks I have. Just if I get stuck on a word that I've used 3 times and need to stop using, I go into Word Hippo and try to find a synonym, and that's normally pretty helpful.
And that's a free resource, right?
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So super fast, cool way to find good words.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be a lot faster than the synonym finder that you've got.
For sure. So how about you, Anna? What's surrounding you? What's something that you are always reaching for?
Well, Mark, contemporaneous to your sometimes almost insidious use of nomenclature that can get a little esoteric.
Never.
I think. No, I'm kidding. I think that what I ironically enough, I'm like you, I have books that I haven't cracked in a long time. This is the Handbook of Good English. I don't know if you can see that. And then my Strunk White is around here somewhere, but I think we were, my husband and I teach Sunday school, and we were doing a session and on Sunday, and they were saying, we were talking about books that inspire us. And so so I think my Strunk White is in the other room, but Strunk White is usually around here. And for the audience that doesn't know what that means is, this was for kids who went to college. When I went to college, I'll just put it that way. This was like on every, if you were an English or a history major, this was always a book that your teacher was asking you to buy. And so, so mine's, my first one actually just fell apart. So this is I think that's Tom's version of it, but it was written by E.B. White and Alan Strunk, I think. And E.B. White, of course, who wrote Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little. And, but he was a longtime editor for the New Yorker. And it's just about how to write clearly and plainly and authoritatively. And if that's not what you need to be writing good marketing copy, I don't know what is. So Strunk White, Handbook of Good English. And I'll have to say, just like Shakespeare used, the Bible has got some great similes, metaphors, and yeah, I mean, it's always here. I'm a big Oxford annotated version. There's about 900 different versions of the Bible, but that's the one I like.
It's amazing.
So those are the ones
how
I
many
have.
idioms have entered the English language that most people don't even know the source of it, and it's from the Bible. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. I've actually got that book too that says, that has the list of all the biblical idioms that we have. So.
All right. Before we get it, we're going to talk about research, but before we dive into that, here's a question I didn't warn you guys about, and that is brainstorming. Are there any tools that you guys love for brainstorming or getting the creative juices flowing when you need them, when you feel stuck? Anything along those lines? While you guys are thinking, go ahead, Mia.
I have one. So one of my favorite brainstorming tools is Google. So if I open, I'm a typical marketer, right? Like I have nothing inspiring or creative to say. No, but one of my favorite keyword research tools or just ways to start brainstorming is like, let's say I want to write a blog. This year has been really tough for us, as I'm sure it has been for a lot of people, because there isn't that same amount of keyword research that there once was for old blogs, right? So we work with schools, and I can give you one example where back in March or April, I wrote a blog on virtual graduation ceremonies. That blog in and of itself had like 500,000 views this year.
Wow.
And it was insane. And it just like blew up. But I just like wrote that out of like people are going to have virtual graduations. Like that's just a matter of life right now. But if you actually, back in April and March, when we were trying to come up with a word for the blog, there was no keyword research around it.
Right.
So we've actually had a really difficult year trying to come up with what to write with. But what I've actually leaned on quite a bit is just going to Google itself and saying like, how to do blank. And when you start to type in anything, Google predicts what you're trying to say, but it does that based on Google Trends data. So what a lot of people are searching for right now. So while you're not going to get that same historical keyword data, it's a really good way to brainstorm. So for me, it's like if I know I need to write something or I want to write something on Giving Tuesday or Thanksgiving email marketing or anything, but I just don't even know like how to get started, I almost always start in Google. Another way that I brainstorm is I like crawl Facebook groups. I look at the questions people are asking, the comments people are making to see if I can formulate that into anything. And I feel like if both of those yield no results, I just resort to a good old fashioned Zoom meeting with some of my favorite colleagues to see if we can come up with something. But I think when it comes to topics, I think I can almost always come up with something based on what I find in a Facebook group or what Google is telling me people care about it in this exact moment.
Yeah, I would concur with the search engine Google tool, but also just for research, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to express this, and then I need to support it with this, and then Google can be really helpful when I'm like, I don't even know if this statistic exists, but it can be really helpful, and just by doing that, it clarifies your own thinking. So it's kind of a brainstorm tool there. My other brainstorm tool and just overall is just the notes function that on my laptop. I mean, I use that all the time for grocery lists, for
Right.
packing lists, but also for, I mean, I was just before we got on this call, I was working on a new business plan for a client and coming up with a new tagline. And I just was like, all right, Anna, and I set the timer for X number of minutes. I was like, write as many words that you can, just word salad. And so I just put the word salad on there, and it's just, and then I got off of that to get on this call. And so I'm going to go back and look at that and go, what in the world what was I thinking? But it's kind of like what you were saying, Mia, is I just had to get it down, you know, before it like left my brain.
I would say the timer on my iPhone is one of my favorite tools. I will give myself a goal of, get off the dime. You got to do this. So here's 5 minutes, try to write whatever you've got to write in 5 minutes and try to get it done. And again, going back to another book, one of the other things I love is A Whack on the Side of the Head by Roger Von Eck. And this book came out in 1983, if that tells you anything. But I use this book. I use the point and click method, so to speak. I'll flip it open to any page and point at the page, and I'll read what he has to say. And this is just a book of creative exercises. It's kind of his methodology, but it's just full of exercises, and I'll take his advice to heart. I also do what's called photo storming. It's where I'll look at a photo. I'll go to like Unsplash or stock photos or somewhere, anywhere on the website, and I'll put in like what I'm writing about, and it'll bring up pictures that have those keywords associated with it, and I'll be inspired by the picture. If it's got a person in it, what's that person doing? Where's that person going? What's that person thinking? Why are the colors the way they are? And it gets me out of this sense of I have to come up with 5 ways to do X or something like that. It gets me to remember, what's going on. And if it's symbolic, it gives me shapes or symbols to start thinking about. And I like photo storming a lot. I also talk out loud. I use the voice memos on my iPhone all the time. I won't necessarily write down notes, but I'll use voice memos, and then I use Rev to transcribe those for me later. So I do a lot of brainstorming on voice memos as well. How about you, Taylor? Anything you wanted to add to that discussion?
Yeah, I'd say Twitter is pretty helpful for me, and just kind of knowing where my clients' trade publications are, which ones are important to them and their industry, and checking in on those publications, checking in on their Twitter accounts, hashtags, seeing what people are talking about, if I've missed any big news that would be relevant. Anna's always on top of that, so we'll check in with her too, and she's a great person to brainstorm with, especially when it comes to health tech and making sure that we understand the bigger picture, because when you understand the bigger picture of what's going on in the industry, then you can figure out where does your client fit into that bigger picture, and then figure out your angle from there.
And that leads us. Go ahead, Anna.
I was just going to say that, and healthcare is unusual, I think. And people talk about healthcare Twitter or medical Twitter. You can find those subgroups, kind of like Mia was saying with Facebook groups. But a lot of those thought leaders are very active on Twitter. And so I hear that legal is too. I'm just not as involved in that, but yeah, to support, to Taylor's point, is I'll hop on Twitter to say, okay, well, what's Ophir Gottlieb's got to say? What's Craig Topol talking about today? What's Dr. Halamka doing? And the guy who just left Cleveland Clinic, whose name I just lost in my head, but and then of course Kaiser Health News and Liz Szabo and folks like that. Just what are they writing about? What's going on that maybe is not about COVID? Amazing.
Yeah, and it's a good chance to pause right here, and we'll do a couple of things here in case you're finding us on LinkedIn or YouTube and streaming this. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are. Golden Spiral is a full-service marketing agency based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we specialize in the health tech space. Those who are creating software or other technological solutions to improve healthcare. And we've been doing this type of integrated marketing, full service marketing across the spectrum with a great integrated team for almost 8 years. And we're also the hosts of Studio CMO, which you can find on any podcast platform you want. And we've had some of the strongest leaders, the strongest marketing executives in our space as guests on our show. So hope you'll get a chance to come check that out. Subscribe to Studio CMO. Check out goldenspiralmarketing.com as well. And Mia, tell us about Final Sight.
Thanks, Mark. So Final Sight, we are the preferred marketing and communications platform. So we're more than 5,000 schools around the world. So what we do is we provide award-winning and digitally accessible designs, website designs, and that is powered by an easy-to-use content management system. And we have hundreds of partners and integrations to basically help your school tell its story and recruit and retain new families. So we work with all different types of schools, public schools, private schools, international schools, charters. We really take a lot of pride in serving the education market, especially in 2020 and beyond, where things are just changing by the minute. And it's been great to partner with so many schools and just help them elevate their story and improve their communications during this time where communications have never been more important.
Indeed. And you can link to both goldenspiralmarketing.com and finalsight.com from the show notes. So come to studiocmo.com/writing tools, studiocmo.com/writing tools. And if you're driving and listening to this or doing other things, that's your verbal cue. So you can remember where to go on the web later on. So let's dive into some research. Taylor, you got some great thoughts about how you research for what you're writing, for the marketing writing you're doing. So walk us through some of those ideas.
Sure. Typically, if we can get an interview with our clients, that is a great first step, and to hear from their mouths what they're seeing as the biggest trends and how they respond to it. We also have a list of third-party research organizations that we have on the Golden Spiral blog that I'll reference, and that's from consulting firms, research organizations, trade publications, and broken out into different categories. It's pretty important to make sure you're not just talking from your own perspective, but pulling in credible research and third-party opinions so that you can support your overall thesis. Every blog post I write is got to have a few of those. So those are the standard places I look: Deloitte, Accenture, PwC, kind of those are the big guys like that. And then getting into like healthcare IT news, modern healthcare, fierce healthcare, and those kind of publications.
And we'll be linking to that article from the show notes as well. So just come on over to studiocmo.com/writing tools, and you can link out to the article on top research organizations.
Great.
Who wants to go next?
I'll give it a shot. A lot of times it does really help if you can engage with certainly the client, but if the client can also then direct you to an expert within their organization. So sometimes the client, so for us, since we're a marketing agency, we generally have one point of contact with the client, but there's lots of subject matter experts at the client. And so it really helps when you can talk to one of those folks, and it's funny because they'll all go, oh, well, they get really nervous about being interviewed, et cetera, et cetera. But once you can kind of get beyond that barrier, and people love to talk about what they do. And so just getting them comfortable, and you'll often find that you may get an insight from them that may or may not be, relevant to that particular blog topic or that particular white paper you're writing, but it might sort of spark another blog post or what have you. That's happened many times. So I do think that primary research of interview is really valuable. And again, you may not use all of it, you may not use any of it, but it certainly helps set the groundwork for what you're trying to do. And then I'll just echo what Taylor says, which is, we are mostly just not able to get out and do the kind of networking in the same way that we did before. but there's lots of available online tools to help you get your research jump started and to sustain it. And we've talked a lot about a lot of those already, but I would just add that a lot of these, like, PwC, Accenture, these are all those former accounting firms who've now diversified into management consulting and sort of becoming quasi think tanks. They're really thinking about that big picture. Another is to think about the analyst reports that are not behind a paywall, that are not gated, like from IDC and Gartner and Forrester. And then in the health tech space, Klaus does a lot of research, reading things like leapfrog surveys for hospitals. Those can all help inform, again, we're talking specifically healthcare, but I'm sure there are counterparts in other subject matter areas to draw from.
Cool. So research for me starts, and we're all assuming this already, and that's one of those crazy things, because it's all built into our marketing DNA, so to speak, and that is just a deep understanding of the customer. I always start there, and at Golden Spiral we have a proprietary system called the Buyer Matrix, where we get into the mind of our customer. I would say that it's akin to a CAT scan. it's really deep analysis as opposed to looking at them through a binocular, and it gets us that deep into understanding who the customer is. And so if we're not writing out of an understanding of who the end user is, the end reader is, then we don't really have any business writing. So that's where my stuff begins, because I'm writing marketing material. Unlike Taylor and Anna, who are writing for our clients, I'm primarily writing for us and creating content for us. And so I have a different audience to be aware of, and a different group of people. So I always start there, and I use a lot of the same resources. Mia, how about you? Tell me about your research process.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar to yours too. I think what's really interesting about working at Finalsite is we really are the known thought leader in the space. So I think we have quite, I feel like in a lot of ways we're similar to HubSpot. Like, people who don't use us, even in our market, come to our website to read our blog. We end up creating a lot of research ourselves. We have a database of more than 5,000 clients. So we're able to release data on, email marketing benchmarks, inbound marketing benchmarks. We usually do annual reports on marketing communications, social media, so that we can actually be the source of what other people are researching for. But all of that does stem from understanding what our clients need and our clients want. Another huge part of my research is a lot of what we talk about is obviously marketing communications related, but also web design related. So we launch about 300 new websites every single year. And with those 300 new launches come lots of things that you look at and you go, really? And lots of things that you look at and you're like, wow, that's really cool. So I think that there's always this mix of my research. Like, every time a new website launches, I go and I look at it, and you might see a trend of good things, you might see a trend of bad things, that either inspires you to write a blog about mistakes and how to fix them, or a blog about something that's really new and upcoming that everyone should be doing. So I think a lot of my research stems from just what's going on. I think and I'm sure it's like this in every field, but what's in the school field in particular, these people who are like managing websites and writing blogs and sending emails are seriously like one person shops that are also doing 101 other things.
Yes.
So, whenever I'm writing a blog, I never, ever want to put out a blog that just says like, this is the research, or like, this is the concept. No one finds that helpful in 2020. It's like, yes, I already knew that. That's how I ended up here. It's like, I want to know. So if I'm researching a topic, like, I need to be able to tell someone like what the issue is, how they can solve it, and then exact examples of what it looks like when it's solved. Like, don't just tell me I need to lose weight. Tell me exactly the foods I need to be eating every single day and the exact exercise to do, and then maybe I'll do it. There's a much higher chance that I'm going to do it if you give me precise directions. So I think for me, a huge part of my research is making sure I can put those three pieces together. And if I can't, unfortunately, I don't write the blog until I can put those three pieces together. Sometimes that means surveying our clients and getting some internal research. Sometimes it means leaning on our client success team and being like, hey, do you have any examples of great landing pages from clients? I can't find any. Do you have any? And then I have to wait for those. So a lot of pieces, but I take a lot of pride in the content that we put out at Final Site, because we don't like to put out anything that's just fluff. Like, we really try to be super helpful. So a lot of research goes into everything at all ends of the spectrum there.
We had,
Mark,
go ahead,
I
Anna.
was just going to say, I think Mia brings up a really good point about the data. I think our marketers are awash in data, and kind of to her point about, don't tell me that I need to lose weight, show me what foods. I think one of the biggest jobs for any writer in the marketing space is to take all of this data and make sense of it for them. So what that means, though, is the onus is on us for whatever writing assignment comes to us, is we have to have a crystal clear understanding of what this piece of content is supposed to do. You know, who are we writing for? Why are we doing it now? When does it have to come out? How long does it have to be? What are the major points to make? But the big thing is, why are we doing this? And I think then it makes it easier to then you can eliminate a lot of that, and it makes the task seem less daunting. But I think too, we were talking about how wonderful Google is in terms of helping us brainstorm, et cetera, but sometimes Google is like, there's just too much out there. So I do think it's helpful to really have that conversation with yourself or your team, or however your workflow processes, to just really have that thematic understanding of what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Our CEO, John Farkas, is often fond of saying, I want to make meaning, or let me make meaning out of that. Or I'm looking, asks our podcast guests, so make some meaning out of that. That's an interesting phrase. And I think that's our job. It's to make meaning out of all of the data. Yeah. We had Leela Srinivasan, who is the CMO for SurveyMonkey, on episode 27. Oh, wow. Of Studio CMO. So you go to studiocmo.com/027 and you can hear the interview with Leela. And we talked a lot about how companies need to do that core research that Final Site does, to be able to have that database, not only to peruse your own contacts, but to ask like-minded people or who have similar needs, to get a larger base of information to be able to market out of a sense of knowledge, out of a sense of, hey, we've looked into the magic ball and we know what needs to be said, and here's what's going on. So if you're interested in doing more research on your own contacts or on contacts similar to yours, check out that episode of Studio CMO. Taylor, I think I interrupted you by accident. What were you going to say?
No, I think it was me. I was going to just chime in too and kind of reiterate what we were speaking about earlier in the episode too, is just the fact that this is a year to create research. That I often find that when I'm trying to write about a topic, like case in point, and again, I'm not writing about things for the healthcare industry or the tech industry. My stuff is much fluffier. So I was reading a lot of Facebook groups that people are having a lot of issues boosting morale with parents, teachers, because everyone's like major burnout. So other than just saying like, whatever, let's celebrate Christmas early, we're done now. I put a blog post together of ways to celebrate your community during the month of November. Nothing exists because no one has done this before. There's no data on how important it is. There's no data from our clients of past performance. There's hardly any examples, and the examples I can find from previous years are so lackluster because you're not sharing gratitude in the same way. Yes, you're just sending a simple email that says, happy Thanksgiving, we're so glad you're part of our community, but the message this year needs to be so much stronger. So I often find, at least in our realm, a lot of the times we're writing a blog, we don't even have any research to go off of. Like, I'm just sitting there like making things up. Just like, this seems like a good idea. Like, you should give this a try. And that's actually what happened with our virtual graduation blog back in March and April. And it took off, and we ended up getting really good feedback out of it. But I think that's kind of my caveat, is don't be afraid to be the first person to write about something. Or don't be afraid to put it out there. I think that you can put it out there and be willing to say, hey, like, these are just our thoughts. These are some ideas. Doesn't take them, leave them. Like, hopefully, even if you get nothing out of this post, maybe it just inspires you. Maybe that's your leapfrog moment. You're like, okay, I know I need to, celebrate my community this November. The drive-through gratitude parade and the Cheers for Peers postcards totally didn't resonate with me, but that inspired me to do something else. Yeah. So I think when the research doesn't exist, don't think that that's because it's not important. I think we're in a time where a lot of the research we're looking for to answer questions does not exist, and it's a really good time to create it yourself.
Right.
Excellent
and I think
points.
a clear, bold assertion of any kind, a clear, bold assertion is the cornerstone of leadership. And where we are is again, our CEO, John Farkas, says, it's a noisy place.
Mm-hmm.
Marketecture, MarTech and marketing is a pretty noisy place. So when you can just say, you know what, I don't know, let's just see what we can come up with. And of course, that takes me back to my early career days when we didn't have all of this research. So we were making stuff up all the time.
I think that's what people did, like, at least in the 90s. Like, I'm a 90s baby. I'm pretty sure that was like the decade of winging things. Like, it was just on the cusp of research being readily available, but people were just, it's the 90s. Like, we're just going to keep going par for the course here.
All right, before we shift gears and talk about the actual craft of writing and the process of actually writing what we need to write, I got a pop-up question for everybody. One of my writing mentors talks about that some writers are plotters, P-L-O-T-T-E-R-S, plotters or outliners, and some are pantsers, P-A-N-T-S-E-R-S, meaning they write by the seat of their pants. So I'm a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. All right. How about you, Taylor? Are you a plotter or a pantser?
Definitely a plotter. I don't do anything by the seat of my pants. Yeah. So that's one of the next step in my writing process is always to get all of my research together in a Google Doc and then build out my outline from there so that I know where I'm headed.
Cool. Anna, how about you?
I'm a plantser, because it just depends. So, and we'll get to this in the actual writing process, but if I'm writing a white paper or an ebook, I have got my index cards. I am saying, okay, I need to make this point and this point and this point, and I number them, and then I move it around because then I go, I don't know if that works, and da-da-da. And then I'll write from that. I borrow Mia's technique all the time, where I start in the middle and I write out. So and then as I was referencing the job that I had to do just now, I mean, that was just put stuff down, get it done, because someone was relying on me to get some stuff back to them. And so I didn't have time to write an outline. And of course, which brings to mind my favorite quote, which has mostly been attributed to Twain, which is, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I'm writing you a long one. But, anyway, so I'm a planter.
Yeah, for me, I have to write before I get a plot. I have to write before I have my outline and know what I'm going to say. So anyway, Mia, how about you?
Yeah,
pantser or plotter?
I feel like I'm a pantser. Like, I'm all over the place, but I feel like for those listening, there is so much plotting that goes into the actual content strategy. Like, there's a second of my time where I'm putting together blog topics by the seat of my pants. But if I know that I have to write a blog on email workflow strategies that work, I'm just starting out with my favorite workflow strategy that I know works, and I'm going to build it from there. I don't want to be given a number. I don't want to know that I have to come up with 5, because maybe I only come up with 3, and I really don't like being confined by any sort of
in. Yeah.
I want to be able to write freely, and if I end up with 10 ideas or I end up with 3, and I think that, we're kind of in the decade of listicles,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm such a clickbaity blog title writer. I wrote a blog last week that was like 8 open house examples that'll make in-person events a thing of the past. And I was just like, why am I doing this? Like,
I would read that. I would read it.
But how that blog started was I just had on the blog calendar, it was just virtual open houses. And it kind of started like, well, what am I going to say about virtual open houses? Then I ended up finding all these good examples, and they're all kind of good in the same way. And it kind of just felt like a really good opportunity to celebrate everyone. But I feel like if someone told me I had to write a blog on virtual open house examples, it would have issued in a totally other mindset than what the blog ended up as. And the blog actually landed me 2 speaking opportunities this month. So I feel like
Great.
it's a really good, I don't know, pantsing.
Pantsing, yeah.
It works for me in the writing world.
Got it. Yeah. So Mia, what type of tools do you use in the actual writing process? What are some things that you've always have open on your screen or are always thinking about as you go through your writing process?
My gosh, I feel like I'm pretty boring. I have a Google Doc. I have a Google Doc running. I feel like I'm the type of person that when I sit down to write, I can write an entire blog start to finish in like 90 minutes. And that's like the actual writing of it. And then like I go back in and I like add examples or research, but like that's kind of like my initial like flood. And I feel like it's kind of how just like my brain works as a human being. Like if I'm dedicating my time to something or like I want to say something, I'm just like full-fledged, all in, like full on concentration, laser focus. And I feel like for those hour and 90 minutes that Google, it's just me and that Google Doc, you know?
It's an Anne Lamott crappy first draft, right?
You know, then I kind of like, and then after that, I feel like that's when tools like Word Hippo come in or researching client examples or going and grabbing the stats. And I kind of do, I liked what you said at the very beginning. You're like, I don't even know if this stat exists yet. Like me Googling things like percentage of people who do X. And you're like,
right. I do that daily.
And then you find some rogue stat from some random website and you're like, it was
that looks good.
Fine. It's fine. Like, that's fine. Someone agrees with me out there on the internet. You know, it's kind of like when you're texting like you had an argument with someone, like your significant other, and you're texting all of your friends. And the first one who agrees with you, you're like, oh, thank you. You validated my feelings. All of my other friends are like worthless. That's basically what it's like researching data on Google is like, did you validate my feelings? Did you validate my feelings? Did you validate my thoughts? No. Got to find that one stat that validates my thoughts for this blog post to make it worth it.
Yeah, I would echo that, except for I do one thing. If it's older than 2018, I just go, okay, probably not. I guess then I go back to the drawing board.
I'm on that one.
Got a competitor. If a competitor's in the article, can't go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Lies, damned lies and statistics. Yep, 83% of them are made up, and the other 17% are lies. What? No.
I think
anyway.
that's how it works. I've often felt like anytime I research something on like HubSpot, it's like I'm just grabbing stats from them, and I'm just like, but you're sourcing someone else, and that someone else is sourcing someone else, and someone else is sourcing. Like, where did this stat originate? Like, what is it? Like 10 degrees of separation? It's like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how I.
I have a good.
All
story
stats
about
come
that
from
one.
Kevin Bacon. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I was trying to think of which celebrity it was. Like, it's not Nicolas Cage. It's not Keanu Reeves. It's someone. Yeah, so I think that's really a fact of life. It is exactly what you said. Is all stats originate from Kevin Bacon's mind. So.
What were you going to say, Anna?
So I do have a good story about that, and this was some years back. So for the listeners who may not be aware, Nashville's, up until the pandemic, it was going through quite a boom town phase and continues to do so. And I was writing for a fledgling health tech startup publication here in town. And one of the things we were going to put in there was, 100 people a day are moving to Nashville. And I remember telling my mother about it, and my mother's a lifelong Nashvilleian, and she was like, Anna, I just don't think that's true. and I was like, yeah. And then, but she got me going. And so I set out to try to unearth that statistic. So, because it was first, I guess it was the Nashville Chamber, I guess is where I got it from or something. I don't know. Then I got on their website, and I was like, okay, where did they source it? Anyway, long story short, it was a single moving company.
Oh.
Wow.
And so I called the moving company, and they said, where did you get 100? And I said, well, I got this from the chamber. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that's what they were. So turns out the 100 was like, it was completely taken out of context. It had nothing to, anyway. So long story short, the best way to determine how many people are moving is not to call a single moving company and then extrapolate
Ask Anna's
out
mom
from
instead.
Yeah.
Or
Ask your
Kevin
mom.
Bacon. Anna's mom or Kevin Bacon will know.
And she just was so skeptical that but what it did is it kind of jarred me to say, why didn't I question that? I just went ahead and put it, and then, so the next time we used it, I said, no, I'm not going to put that in there. And so then I think we ended up, speaking of alternate statistics. So then I did call and get like some recent housing information from like the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors or something, and was able to illustrate momentum in a different way that was a little bit more valid. And so long and the short of it is, ain't 100 people moving here every day. Just
And that statistic has been quoted by everybody, from the mayor,
I have read
governor,
that on so many Nashville websites when I lived there. It's like everywhere.
Yeah. So
I think that is a good point, though. I can sometimes get so eager to have found what I think is a great supporting point that it is important to make sure that it's the right context.
Right.
Yeah, you got to do your best to do like your 10 degrees of separation. Like if you read a stat, to try and figure out where it really was originally sourced from, because I think there's so many people too who like HubSpot, and I keep referring back to HubSpot because I feel like everyone goes to HubSpot for marketing stats. HubSpot might source something and they just put source in quotes. You're like, oh, HubSpot quoted it, it's fine. And like you actually click source and it's like something from 2012 and you're like,
So
whoa.
it happens regularly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
Like, that was 8 years ago, HubSpot. Like, what has changed? How many iPhones have there been since 2012? Like, I don't even know if I had an iPhone in 2012. Like,
I don't know. Let's call the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors.
And this is not an advertisement for an iPhone 12 Pro or an iPhone 12 Mini, just so everybody knows. That's okay. So Taylor, how about your writing process, the actual sitting down and writing? What do you want to say that hasn't already been said?
Yeah, I think that we've covered a lot of what I do, really working in that Google Doc and planning out what I'm going to write. I'll use some other tools like the CoSchedule email subject line tester, which Mark, you introduced me to that.
Yeah.
And then Hashtagify me. I think Anna uses that as well,
Mm-hmm.
to just see what else. Hashtagify me is good just to make sure we're using the right hashtags on social. Because that's something we haven't really talked about is social content development is also a process, and it's something that takes longer. It takes a lot more thought than people think. And it requires research and just getting the right voice, and Hashtagify me comes in really helpful there to make sure that we're using the hashtags that are going to get found.
One of the most helpful things for me as a pantser has actually been a template. So all of our blog posts that we publish for Golden Spiral have a template. They have certain parts that we want to fill in, certain objectives to meet. And so in essence, it's a checklist. Am I doing all the parts and pieces? And so I will go in and I'll steal the scene from the movie Finding Forrester, and I'll punch the keys.
Punch the keys, for God's sake!
And I'll get my crappy first draft done, and then I'll go back and go, oh, wait a minute, completely forgot about this, completely forgot about that, and begin to fill in those sections. So I find the template really helpful. And I have templates that I've developed for myself for social posts, for blog posts, for emails, and other things. I don't like checklists with actual boxes or lists of things. I like kind of having this blank sheet of paper with things on it that I can go and actually click in and fill things in. It helps my brain process. It's not everybody's process, but it's what helps me. So let's talk about SEO. A lot of the things we've talked about already are important. They help you be found, which is the goal of a lot of this writing that we're doing. You want your website to be found so that you can influence folks to use your solution or buy your product. So let's talk about that some. How do we enrich what we write so that we're found?
Okay, so first thing, I do want to put a disclaimer on it because I think that when you're writing for any company, whether you're an agency listening in and you're writing for your clients, or you're just a tech company listening in and you're writing for yourself, you have to find a way to strike a balance between content that you're writing for SEO and content that you're just writing to be a thought leader and to resonate with your audience. Not every single topic that you put out there, Google cares about, but it might be something that your client base cares about or your prospective clients care about. And even though they're not searching for it, deep down they care about it. And maybe they're just not searching for the right words to find it. So first things first, if you're writing 2 or 3 times a week, I definitely encourage you to at least allow one of those blogs to always be something that's just for your community. It doesn't have to be for SEO. Right. You're still gonna get authority in the sense that you're putting out good, long length, authoritative content. You're building up that website authority there. I think that a company blog can get very stale very quickly when all you do is write, 5 ways to improve X because we see that 500 people a month are searching for how to improve X, right? Like it's a little boring, it's a little mundane. So when we're writing for an SEO perspective, I think there are obviously some key things that we want to take into consideration. We want to take in consideration the actual blog title. I am obsessed with the Uber Suggest plugin, and I know not everyone loves Uber Suggest, but they actually created this amazing Google Chrome plugin where anytime you search for literally anything, so it's actually very interesting in like my personal life when I'm searching for just like, I don't know, Boston Terrier rescues in Georgia, it's like 340 people are also searching for this month. So I like live and die by that Uber Suggest tool because it tells me the search volume of certain keywords. And that really helps shape my title and also the keywords that I want to use throughout my blog.
Is that a premium plugin or is it
no, it's
still
free?
Still free.
It's like the best. It is the best free SEO tool you can use. It is a plugin. You go to Google, you search for anything. It pulls up the search volume, the cost per click, and then any related keywords in their search volume. Wow. It is like the best free keyword research tool out there. I'm obsessed with it. I feel like it does, especially on like a blog by blog basis. Like if all you're doing is blog keyword research and like you're on like a budget, you don't need like SEMrush. SEMrush is great for competitor research and overall SEO strategy. But I think if you're working on like a blog to blog basis, the whole team here loves using Uber Suggest because I'm just like, okay, I need to write a blog on, virtual admissions. I'm searching for all things related to that to see where that keyword volume is, where that cost per click is, and build a strategy from there. So I'm always basing my title off whatever keyword I need to get in there in some way, shape, or form. And then of course, we're integrating that keyword throughout the blog post. We want to make sure that keyword is also in the URL and that it matches. And I'm a huge advocate of removing any fluff from the URL. So words like to, and, but, getting down to just the basics. So if you're like me and you love writing clickbaity titles, 8 virtual open house examples that'll make in-person events a thing of the past, please do not make that your URL. Just make URL virtual open house examples. It's really all you need to do. Some other things that randomly help with SEO that you probably wouldn't think of: consistent grammar. Google will crawl your blog, and if you make spelling mistakes or use inconsistent headings. So if you use sentence casing in one of your headings and title casing in another one of your headings, Google's like, they're inconsistent. They can't be trusted. So consistent use of the Oxford comma, consistent use of title casing versus sentence casing. The websites that you're linking out to, make sure they're not spammy. If you are doing like a listicle article, like 3, 5, 10, 20, 100 things that you need to do, list out those things at the beginning and create jump links to those portions of the blog. So if you want to land a spot at the top of Google, especially in one of those, and I'm losing the name of it, but it's like when you search for something and like the box comes up right away. And I cannot remember the exact name of it.
Neither can I. This is crazy.
Oh yeah. The preview thing.
Yeah, the preview thing. And it showcases one blog. We land for so many of those in Google because we make that list at the top. And like, there's always like those really formulaic SEO things you're going to put in your blog. It's like, and it kills me as a writer to write them. I'm just like, in this blog, you're going to learn 8 ways to improve your virtual open house. The 8 ways are 1, 2, 3. And I'm just like, am I seriously writing this? Like Mr. Trimmer would be so disappointed. But let me tell you, that's what gets you to the top of Google. Your cute little anecdote about your puppy and your dog. Google don't give a crap about that. Yes, the writer in you wants to write it, but Google doesn't care. Your intro paragraph, skip the fluff. Okay, if you need to rank in Google, no one wants to hear about your dogs, your kids, your love for Hallmark movies, the fact that you're putting up your Christmas decorations early. No one cares. Well, your readers might care. Google does not. Save that for like the fluff in the middle, but do not put it in your intro paragraph. Rant over there. I had to go back and redo a lot of I had to go back and redo a lot of my old blogs that I wrote, I'd say between 2015 and 2018, because we started a lot of our blogs that way. And while the blogs were ranking really well, we were ranking like 2 or 3. And by simply making that switch of me getting rid of like my fluff at the beginning and just being like, hello, we are here today to talk about X. Here are the X examples. And linking those up, like we got into the like #1 spot pretty instantly, like the second Google crawled it. So I think it's really hard as a writer sometimes, like let go of your ego and be like, but that's not how I want to write. Like, this is so bad. Like, it literally kills me as a human being, as writer, every time I write a sentence like that. But if you're writing for SEO and you're writing to rank and search, you've got to let go of the fluff sometimes, even though like, as a writer, the fluff is what makes your writing compelling. So
we revamped the entire top end of our blog articles on purpose in order to absorb a lot of the same types of the ideas and advice that Mia's giving. So it's worth doing.
Yeah. And I think we usually try to save like a lot of like our fluff for like within the examples, or like within the steps or within the tips, or even just like the meta description, or if you send out a blog digest or you post it on social, that's when you can use all of those anecdotes. We also host a school marketing show. So we have like a show, we go on live on Facebook every Mondays. And I feel like when we do the school marketing show, that's when we have like a lot of our personality and anecdotes. But then in the blog post, it's very like black and white. It's like, hi, we were fun on TV, but we are not fun when we write because this must rank #1.
Right. No messing around.
Yeah, this is like I really care about you having a great Thanksgiving, but also I need to be #1 in Google. So like, gotta find the balance.
Right. Right.
So I think that's key.
It's sort of like, fun parent versus non-fun parent, and so like the old Modern Family story of like Claire turns to her husband and she goes, yeah, this is the kid whose parents send him to school with $100 bill. There's 2 fun parents. Can't have 2 fun parents. Only 1 fun parent. So when you're writing blogs, you need to be the unfun parent, but you can be the fun parent when you're writing, like you said. But I would also, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, Mia, of you need to absolutely write for SEO, but there are times, and that's when you can, really unleash your creative juices, when you're writing for your community and you sort of set aside. And so I think that's a very healthy balance to maintain is, look, you got to get your site ranking. That's why we're here. But at the same time, you're also here to build a community, and our clients rely on us to be able to do both.
Yeah, I think too, one critical piece that we left out, because I feel like in my mind, I've been so hard focused on blogs, but emails are another really good place to showcase.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, whip out the GIFs, whip out the memes, the emojis, talk like a human. And I think emails are a really good place to do that. And it's a really nice way to be like, here's our fluffer nutter, and here's our very strategic blog post you need to.
Good points. Good points all. Taylor, I know you've done a lot of work writing SEO critical information. Anything you wanted to add to the blitzkrieg of SEO content we've just had from Mia?
Sure. At Golden Spiral, we have the fortunate opportunity to be an integrated team. So I'm quick to turn to the SEO experts that we have here and get their input. We work really closely, and when we're planning out our editorial calendars, it's not just, oh, here's a topic. It's here's a topic that aligns with this set of keywords that our SEO experts have researched heavily and have identified as your top opportunities. And so we do all of our content planning in Airtable, which helps us have that integrated approach, because I have all the keywords are in there, and then all of the other elements of who's the buyer, what phase of the funnel are they in, and so I can line it all up and make sure that we have a good balance of hitting different buyers, of hitting different phases in the funnel, and then also a good content keyword mix And then we also rely heavily on Google Analytics and reporting to be able to look and see which blog posts or which pages on the site are ranking well, and being able to pull in some of those similar themes and new content, because we know it's what people are going to. So using that data to inform our decisions from a content development perspective is really important.
Well,
sorry, I know I'm like, I have a hard stop, but I want to keep talking.
Well, then you keep talking.
I felt like Taylor brought up one of my favorite, I think, as if you're a company that has an established blog, but you still feel like you're not ranking well in search and you're trying to get to the bottom of it, I think Google Analytics is a great way to, track which blogs are popular. But a way that we've been able to identify low-hanging fruit is getting that report of all of the terms that we rank for, and saying like, okay, we're ranking 1, 2, and 3 for these. Like, that's good. Those are golden. But like, why are we ranking number 5 for this? And then looking to see if our competitors are ranking higher for it instead. And those are the blogs that we focus on, especially if they have a high keyword volume. So I think it's like finding that balance of the keyword volume, what you need to write about, what your competitors are writing about. But I don't think that they're, at least here at Final Site, and I know at Golden Spiral too, there isn't like a single blog post that gets written where it's not like, okay, there's people searching for this, people care about it, and it's going to help us and help our clients. And I think if you can take the time, I think now is a really good time, like the end of the year, to work with your in-house team or work with your agency, or get to work with someone like that and get that report of all the pages that you're ranking for, get those reports of who your competitors are ranking for, and use that as a launching pad for just some low-hanging fruit. Because I think it's one thing, and again, you might be just starting out in writing, and obviously that's a totally different animal. But for us at Final Site, that was a really easy way to increase our performance in search and improve our performance in search and increase the number of pages we had ranking 1, 2, and 3 in Google. Was literally just going through and like cleaning up pages that were basically ranking 5 through 20. And we basically increased our things in ranks 1, 2, 3, I think by like 300 or 400. It was like a lot, a very significant amount of pages that we ended up increasing just by doing that. So Google Analytics, I think, can offer a lot of insight as to what to blog about and what to, improve that you already have.
Great.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, the hour has flown by. This has been fun. This has been full of information. Remember to come over to studiocmo.com/writing tools for all the show notes, so that if you're like, what did she say? We can find it right there and be able to link out to a resource so that you can do a great research, like the Uber Suggest Chrome plugin, or like Strunk and White's great book that Elements of Style that everybody has got to have a copy of. You'll find all that information there. And if you've got questions, comments, groans, gripes, complaints, yeehaws, or yahoos, leave them for us in the notes of wherever you're watching this video, and we'll be sure to do some follow-up in the future. So we're grateful for you being able to click on our video today. And if you don't like, or you think your school can be improved in the way that they communicate to you as a parent, check out Final Site. Send the administration from your school over to Final Site. And if you're a health tech company who is looking for ways to improve your content or improve any aspect of your marketing, come on over and check us out at goldenspiralmarketing.com. We appreciate you guys. For Studio CMO and all of the folks at Golden Spiral, I'm Mark Whitlock. See you later.